Whatever happened to that issue of family and family values? So in Scorched Earth, yes, my great new book, my masterpiece, my opus, the most brilliant book I've ever written, page 51, I'm going to read half a page. What happened to our beloved America? I know what's happening now. We have led in a sea of cancers. Some of them are progressive elected officials that are eating us up from within. The question is, how do we get here? Nearly a half century ago, we put a man on the moon. Now leftist protesters reveal their full moon in broad daylight. With no help from Al Gore, despite his ridiculous claims, we Americans invented the information superhighway. Internet entrepreneurs created companies such as eBay, thereby accelerating global commerce. Now we have congressmen of both political parties texting underage boys and tweeting out pictures of their appendage to young girls. How did we decline so rapidly? The only certain thing is that America's wounds are internal, and that has left us vulnerable to attack externally. Radical Islamists are determined to kill us and wipe great Satan America and little Satan Israel off the map. ISIS, Iran, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Saudi Arabian Wahhabi nutcases all want to destroy us. The World War II generation faced threats head-on. Now, through inactivity or liberal self-loathing, we help those who are trying to kill us. To what I say. Here's another little story. Well, I can't even read it because it won't have it. I put it up from the local newspaper. A 50-year-old woman was walking in San Francisco at 7 at night in the light on Pacific Heights. It's a good neighborhood, clean, well lit. And a predator came up behind her and beat her up. But if you watch the video, you'll see the stranger punching the woman on the ground, beating her. He doesn't stop beating her till she doesn't move. He beats her and he beats her and he beats her and he wasn't he hit her to take a purse. He beat her until she didn't move. It was like watching an animal, a predatory animal, attack another animal and bite it in the neck until it stopped moving. And, you know, when I say to you that the city is becoming the worst jungle you can imagine, it's a hellhole, a cesspool. There's garbage in the streets, the sewers are overflowing, the bums are out of control. And don't get me wrong, I love the city, but I'm telling you what's going on. You take your life in your hands now walking in San Francisco, and it is a direct result of the progs, the corrupt progs who are running the city, who won't let the police do their jobs. They won't even identify the attacker. They won't even give you his race. Go and look at it. You won't believe what you're watching. I linked it up from the SF Gate thing. Here it comes. Here's the predator, runs up to this poor woman, bang. Now she's down. Now she's on the ground. He doesn't take anything from her. He's pounding her like in an MMA fight that would have been stopped after the second blow. She's squirming. This piece of human trash, this subhuman, keeps hitting her. This woman, 50 years old, he hits her and hits her and hits her and hits her. And you will not believe what the article that was written says. It implies she said something to him. It implies she said something that provoked him. The woman was walking down the street and turns back to look at the man jogging toward her and wearing a dark hoodie. Oh, really? Without warning, he grabs her by the arm and punches her in the face. He continued hitting her numerous times. He dragged her to the ground. The attack goes on until the woman cannot move. And it says, the victim, whose name was not released, did not speak to her attacker. But the assailant, again, not identified, no race, a complete stranger, might have asked her to apologize for something before the attack. I never saw anything like this in my life. That a newspaper would go this low as to blame a woman who was almost killed by a piece of subhuman trash. And then they say, listen to this. Anyone who recognizes the suspect and calls San Francisco police, they don't even identify what the suspect looked like. No age, no height, no race. I'm surprised that they're even allowed to say it was a man. Because in San Francisco, if you identify a suspect as a man, you may be offending people simply by identifying him by his sex. Think about it. We have bathrooms in San Francisco that you can't say man or woman. You can't call a boy, a girl, a girl. So I think that in addition to stopping identifying perpetrators by their race because it's offensive to certain races, I think we should stop identifying perpetrators by their sex. And we should no longer even hear that it was a man. And then you could see a description at the bottom of the articles in this wonderful city of mine. Anyone who recognizes the suspect can call San Francisco police. How can you identify a suspect if you can't even say what he is? Right? This is the world we're living in. This is what I talk about when I'm talking to you about a meltdown of a social order, when I'm talking to you about what progressive policies have done to this beautiful city and to this beautiful nation. I have no better example than this. And yes, I blame the progs in office. That's right. I'm Michael Savage. That's my name. And now I want to read you something that I think is on that level, but not as tone poemy. And it's a piece from... I'm going to just read it to you. It's from Scorched Earth. Yes, I want you to buy it on Amazon, okay? But listen carefully why you have to have it. It's under the American Cultural Revolution. Islamists watch training videos on how to carry out jihad against the infidels, while our kids are taking naked pictures of themselves and sending them to members of Congress. Our young people take selfies. Everything is a selfie. Our enemies are preparing our funerals, while our young people worry that pictures of the funerals will not show up on their Instagram accounts. Iran is trying to set up a global caliphate while we strive to become the next Mozambique. How did the Islamists go from being a regional power to a global fighting force? How did Americans end up supporting our enemies? Well, it starts with a culture that shares a common bond with our enemies. They don't want us to exist, and neither do we. Forget good breeding. We don't do any breeding. Islamists have 14 children apiece, so losing 7 children to homicide bombings is a drop in the bucket. We went from having 2.3 children to an abortion culture and an overpriced Manhattan loft. A 3-bedroom family house is a waste when there is no family. Islamists ban birth control and turn their women into baby jihad factories. We have feminists demanding a life of free sex with unlimited trips to the abortion clinic. Most people would never connect abortion to radical Islam, but you're smarter than most people. That's why you're reading Scorched Earth. Start with the numbers. There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world. America has at last count 320 million people. With so many illegals, it is tough to get an accurate count. There are roughly 4 times as many Muslims as Americans. They keep adding to their ranks, and we keep importing illegals because our own people eliminate their babies. At this rate, we will go the way of Europistan. Italy even has had a declining birth rate in recent years. Europe is finished. They refuse to reproduce while Islamist women keep churning out the next generation of Islamists. At least some Americans are still having children. Unfortunately, many of those children spend their formative years being taught how to surrender. The emasculation of American boys is one step short of suicide. Muslims are living in patriarchal societies, while American boys are being emasculated. Schoolyards used to be filled with kids at recess playing games like Kill the Guy with the Ball. Nobody died. We played Smear the Queer. Nobody sued anybody. Boys played with G.I. Joes and girls played with dolls. Kids played freeze tag without a single incident of sexual harassment. Cartoons were filled with violence. Bugs Bunny tied the gun in a knot, and Elmer Fudd's gun went kaboom, covering his own head in black soot. Wile E. Cody chased the Roadrunner and fell off his death. We as children knew not to try and jump off the roof. Teenage boys watched Rocky and Bambo. Then we came home without trying to kill anybody. We did not need liberals to tell us the difference between pretend and real. Our parents handle that. Now schools across the country are canceling gym class. Even rock, paper, scissors is too violent. Rocks and scissors could be used by children to harm each other. Paper requires murdering trees. It's no wonder Islamists produce strapping young men, while America produces sensitive crybabies. Muslim children are taught in madrasas how to kill the infidels and the blasphemers. American boys are suspended from school for arranging their school lunch vegetables in the shape of a gun. Perhaps it's good they get suspended. Michelle Obama is starving our children anyway. Pizza, burgers, fries are replaced with gluten-free, calorie-free, flavor-free garbage that the kids throw away. Then they race home and grab a hamburger because growing boys want more than an apple slice and a fiber protein bar. During World War II, young boys volunteered to go overseas to save the world. The Korean War had Colonel David Hackworth teaching our young military how best to kill a commie from Ami. Now American kids on college campuses retreat to their safe spaces to escape from potential microaggressions. Islamists cut off heads and limbs, and our young boys shriek at the drop of a microaggression. When I watch movies from the 1950s, I see an America that was bold, daring, macho, unafraid, and proud of itself. When I look at America today, I see obviously something else. This is because A very small band of radical fanatical leftists seized every aspect of the media and every avenue of government imaginable. They're not the majority and they don't speak for the people. They are a small band of political deviants. They are political deviants in a statistical sense, in a political sense, and in a social sense. This small band of deviants in government and in the media have wrecked the United States of America and turned us into a nation of almost slaves. They turned the grandchildren of the greatest generation into jellyfish. It is easy to blame the 1960s flower power and other inanimate objects. It takes a village of people to destroy a child. They need to be called out by name. Hillary Clinton and even Barack Obama are just symptoms of a much bigger disease. But the reason I'm reading this on the American Cultural Revolution from my forthcoming Scorched Earth is because apparently social values are not part of this campaign. It's come down to almost idiotic issues, such as Hillary's alleged health problems. But what we're living through right now as part of the disease of the Cultural Revolution started right around the time Barry was born. This Cultural Revolution was begun by Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, and I would say Bella Abzug. This was a group that you could never find in hell itself to do more damage to a nation. They were all such silk-smooth salesmen. One pushed rampant sex with animals. Another one pushed rampant drug use, mainly LSD. The other one, God knows what he pushed. There was also a lawyer involved, William Kunstler. Abzug was a feminist who once said, "The establishment is made up of little men very frightened." Of course they are frightened. Long before fire-breathing dragon ladies Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz set about castrating the entire male gender, Helen Thomas and Bella Abzug existed. Thomas was more of an Islamist than a feminist. Her demands that Jews be expelled from the Middle East and returned to Europe made her more of a jihadist than a bra burner. As the self-titled Dean of the White House Press Corps, Helen Thomas was able to traffic in Jew hatred by intimidating American men. She intimidated male journalists so she could then intimidate presidents. Helen the Hideous had nothing on bellicose Bella. Abzug never missed an opportunity to praise murderous regimes while bashing America. She once thundered that, quote, "Imperfect though it may be, the Beijing Platform for Action is the strongest statement of consensus on women's equality, empowerment, and justice ever produced by governments." That was in 1995, only 75 years after Americans ratified the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. Meanwhile, China's one-child policy resulted in plenty of girls never being born. It may seem odd for a flaming feminist to support such sexism, but leftists love anything that increases abortions. She pushed gay rights, environmental rights, and racial justice, all of which have nothing to do with improving the lives of women. Abzug convinced a whole generation of women that feminism required leftist activism. Her husband was a member of the Young Communist League, and she shared his leanings and practice if not entitled. She was also a typical leftist hypocrite. While pushing the gay agenda on everyone else, she lamented having two daughters who both turned out to be lesbians. After decades of claptrap about being a strong, independent woman, she confessed her emotional dependence on her husband. Abzug encouraged young girls and women to try and defy biology, all the while pining for her husband's strength and heterosexual children. Like Abzug, and by the way, I could be talking about someone who's running for the presidency because Hillary Clinton is a descendant of Abzug psychologically. Like Abzug, Timothy Leary did everything he could to destroy young human minds. His drug of choice was LSD. He became an academic who became famous for telling students to turn on, tune in, drop out. Psychedelic mushrooms were part of his curriculum. His idea of humor was spouting destructive thoughts disguised as harmless platitudes. There are 3 side effects of acid, he said: enhanced long-term memory, decreased short-term memory, and I forget the third. Acid does not enhance long-term memory. Like many typical leftist academics, Tim Leary was an anti-God as he was pro-drug. Monotheism, he said, is the primitive religion which centers human consciousness on hive authority. There is one God and his name is, substitute hive label. If there is only one God, then there is no choice, no option, no selection of reality. There is only submission or heresy. The word Islam means submission. The basic posture of Christianity is kneeling. Thy will be done. Leary influenced a generation of young minds to equate Christians kneeling in prayer with Muslim terrorists. It is no wonder after the September 11th attacks that so many liberals sought to equate a mythical radical Christianity with a truly violent radical Islam. Meanwhile, The CDC reported that an all-time high 47,000 people died from drug overdoses in 2014. The liberal response is to push for more legalization. Colorado and Washington State have turned into drug central with a few trees. Young people flock to Denver and Seattle to tune in, turn on, and drop dead. Allen Ginsberg was another leftist who contributed to America's moral decline. He abandoned his Jewish faith to take up Buddhism, yet his real religion was leftism. He was a beat poet, which even today is considered by leftists to be an actual vocation. Beat poets are like community organizers, but with more candles. Ginsberg's famous 1956 poem, Howl, excoriated capitalism and paid glowing tribute to homosexual sex. I can read on, and I will read on and on when the book Scorched Earth is in your hand, when we can read it together and all howl together, right here on the Savage Nation, is to show you a few things, which is that our culture has melted down like Chernobyl. And in this campaign, when have you heard Hillary Clinton talk about cultural values? She is a representative. She is the Jeanne d'Arc, the Joan of Arc, of the campaign against family values and cultural norms. She is the dragon. But let me read a few snippets, because I think that maybe by reading this, Donald Trump just might be advised to start talking about social and cultural issues and not get trapped by Clinton into ignoring them entirely. So here's a page from Scorched Earth. During World War II, I write, Hollywood was patriotic. Jimmy Stewart was a war hero. American movies accurately portrayed America as the good guys. Cartoons featuring Bugs Bunny mocked Adolf Hitler. Hollywood is now run by ardent progs. The few pro-American movies out there have to be privately financed to get made. Look at television. There used to be shows with respected father figures, such as Father Knows Best. In the 1970s, we even had Good Times, where John Amos was a strong black father figure. Then came Dad as Clown. From The Cosby Show to Everybody Loves Raymond, the father was reduced to a punchline. The mother was the adult, and the father was just another child for the mother to contend with. It is no wonder boys are growing up emasculated. The left has wiped out the father as a respected figure. The left has long owned the big three television stations, but one of them has turned their entire programming into leftist indoctrination. NBC owns more than the communist-leaning MSNBC. The parent company has done plenty of indoctrinating on its own. Climate change used to be the domain of a few crackpots. Now every night kids are bombarded with the more you know ads that are far from innocuous. Little kids are scared to death that the climate change boogeyman is hiding under their bed, preparing to leap up and drown them in acid rain. In 2004, Americans overwhelmingly supported gay marriage bans. Those ballot measures defending traditional marriage played a key role in President George W. Bush's reelection. The public supported traditional marriage. Then, the television networks intervened. Ordinary people in middle America were portrayed as outside the mainstream. By the time the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, the public opinion had already shifted. Young people were almost lockstep in favor of gay marriage. The television carpet bombing of their minds worked. In addition to the entertainment industry, libs seized control of the schools. Randy Weingarten is the president of the American Federation of Teachers. Her job is to make sure that teachers who molest children are given protection from being fired. Try firing a bad public school teacher, then wait a few years. The unions give millions of dollars to liberal Democrats in exchange for lifetime protection for all involved. Teachers are free to indoctrinate students without any fear of interference from parents. Huckleberry Finn gets removed from classrooms while Heather Has Two Mommies replaces it. The left controls the libraries. When was the last time you saw a Republican librarian? The libraries decide what books are on the shelf and what books are restricted. Music is the domain of the left. Rappers sing songs about murdering police officers. Then young people march in the streets chanting for more dead officers. When the inevitable happens, the left expresses shock that their calls for violence led to violence. The internet is supposed to be free and open for people to seek information as they see fit. Now try looking something up. You Google it. Google is run by a hardcore leftist. So are YouTube and Facebook. A Freedom of Information Act request led to the release of some of Hillary Clinton's emails. One of those emails showed that Mrs. Clinton's people send various emails of their own to executives at Google and YouTube. After the Benghazi debacle, Clinton's people persuaded the executives to block the YouTube video that Obama and Clinton blamed for the attacks. Had Americans seen the actual, crudely made video, they would have scoffed at the notion that Benghazi was about a video. The video was blocked for several days while the Obama administration and its employees get their lying story straight. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg is another one who shuts down pages on his site that are critical of Islam. Yet pages dedicated to finishing off the Jews are allowed to stay up on Facebook. Zuckerberg is an indoctrinated millennial who now uses his multi-billion-dollar empire to indoctrinate the next generation of young leftists and trainings. And there's more. Much, much more about the leftist agitators Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton reaching the highest levels of power. And I say Barack Obama didn't start this decline. He was put in place by the radical left to push us as far as he could. Mao Zedong's China is apparently the model. And then I go into what happened in communist China, which started out rather innocuously, by the way. So let me conclude on this cultural chapter from Scorched Earth with the ending of it, because it's all about Hillary and the dangers that we face from her. Funded by George the Evil Soros, Barry Obama and Hillary have been grooming the next group of Marxist socialist justice warriors. Black Lives Matter, Code Pink, Occupy Wall Street, and every other violent leftist group is a direct consequence of Gramsci's model being applied to the most vulnerable among us, our children. While our indoctrinated young leftist radicals are tearing America down, our Islamist enemies are building their armies up. Our kids are curled up in the fetal position in their safe spaces, hiding from climate change monsters. If they are the last line of defense, the Islamists should soon be able to take control of America the way they did Europe. We will all be part of the caliphate soon enough. Yeah, okay, you think it's hyperbole? Or do you think that what Hillary says is right? Just admit as many Islamists in as possible, hiding under the guise of being friendly, middle-of-the-road, plain old middle-of-the-road Muslims coming here to work and make America great again.